Welcome to the Waiting List podcast. Tell us a story.
It's like many things you start building from scratch.
And then I'm like, wait, I really do like watches because
You've seen so many watches that makes you excited.
I think I really do like watches.
Yeah. I think it's a great way to see if you are a watch enthusiast.
Welcome to another episode of the Waiting List podcast with me, Daniel Sum, and the irrepressible Long Long, and the human in Barker ham that is Chester Pan.
Oi.
That is accurate.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Alex is not here again, but anyway, his loss is our gain as we welcome back Adrian from the Bark and Jack YouTube channel. So welcome again, Adrian.
Thanks so much for having me again.
It's always a pleasure. We had lots of fun last time.
Yeah. It was good fun. Yeah, I enjoyed the conversation. It's good.
So without further ado, let's get into the interview. If you missed the first part, you can go back into a look for it. It's more about Adrian and his YouTube entrepreneurial journey, and basically the difficulties, hardships, and the fun that he has making his YouTube channel. This one is more based on watches and you and your own flavor of watches. So before we start, where are you actually from in the UK? Because I'm trying to work out your accent, and I'm from the UK, and Alex is from the UK. Long Long spent a lot of time in that super classy upmarket place called Coventry, right?
Classy.
Yeah, which is the name for Warwick University.
That's good. Good uni. Good business school.
Called Maidenhead, which is I don't know if you know where that is. It's near Marlow, Henley, Beaconsfield.
Oh yeah.
So where are you from?
I'm not really. Yeah. So my accent's weird because I feel like I'm quite an international person. My parents were in the forces, and so I moved around pretty much every 2.5 years. So I've lived in Germany. We did 2 or 3 tours of Germany. We lived in Holland, lived in Florida, and then in various places within the UK. So, and then I kind of went to an international school. It wasn't officially an international school, but it was fairly international. So I guess my accent's just a big mush. I say I'm from Cambridge because we've always had a house in Cambridge, but we moved around quite a bit.
I guess the next question you always get is did you go to Cambridge University? Right?
That is everyone's first question after that. No, I didn't.
Few IQ points there.
You know that uni in the UK called Oxford Brookes?
Yeah.
You don't want to apply there because every time you start the conversation, they're like, Oxford? Wow. No, Brookes. And they're just silence.
There's one in Cambridge as well. Cambridge has, I think it's Anglo-Ruskin University, which is in Cambridge, but it's not the Cambridge. So yeah, it's one of those awkward conversations.
Well, I went to Liverpool, and Liverpool has 3 universities. So Liverpool University is the main one. The second one was a polytechnic, then changed to a university because they kind of got rid of polytechnics. And that was John Moores. So Liverpool John Moores. You've probably heard of it.
Yeah.
Now there's another one called Hope. And that's the shittest one.
Yeah, I've heard of that one as well.
Just to say, if you can't get to Liverpool or John Moores, you still got hope.
You're hopeless.
Matt actually never met anybody from Hope. But anyway, how did you get into watches? I think that's the most natural question to ask you.
And my response is quite cliched. I think I've always been into watches, even as a very, very young kid. I've always worn watches. I've always liked watches, flick-flack watches, and I think it's been more than just. I don't really see them as jewelry, but kind of. I don't know, just a tool to tell time. But I guess maybe as a teenager, I really remember every time we'd travel, and my parents lived in Germany. I went to boarding school in Norfolk, and so I was traveling quite a lot on my own, and I'd spend a lot of the time just looking through the glass windows of watch shops, just staring at Tag Heuers and Breitlings, which is what I kind of obsessed about as a kid. and it kind of just grew from there. But if I'm honest, I always ignored the luxury side of watches, and I kind of just gravitated towards Seikos and Citizens because that's what my dad wore. The official REF watch that you're issued is a Seiko chronograph. At least you were. I don't think you are anymore. And so I naturally gravitated towards Seikos and Citizens, and I never really understood the purpose of luxury watches. I never understood why you would spend more on something like a Rolex or a Tag Heuer or a Breitling. I didn't get it, and I guess I used to think the same about cars. Why do you spend more on a Porsche when a Mazda MX-5 would do a similar thing? And it wasn't until my sister-in-law was working at Gucci, and she this is going to sound a little embarrassing. She used to work at Gucci, and she could get a massive discount on watches. And she asked if I wanted this £1,200 watch for something like 95% off. I got it for like £100 or something. I thought, yeah, cool. And I'm not a Gucci kind of person, but I would have that bigger discount. So I got this watch for £100. And although it's not luxury and it's very much fashion, it had things on it that fascinated me. It had sapphire crystal. It had an automatic movement, it had an ETA movement inside, and it had a calfskin leather strap. And all of those things I hadn't really experienced before. I knew about automatic mechanical watches, but I hadn't experienced it before. I knew about sapphire crystal, but I hadn't looked through sapphire crystal on a used watch that it had become. And so the penny dropped. I understood why these more expensive, more luxurious watches were more expensive, because they had the calfskin leather strap felt really nice. The sapphire crystal was just insanely clear compared to the mineral crystal all my other watches had. And there was something nice about this mechanical watch, the fact that it arrived dead and I could give it a couple of shakes and it came to life. And then I just fell down a rabbit hole of doing research on the movement. I knew Gucci didn't make the movement inside. I wanted to know who made this movement. So then I started researching. I then found watch forums, and I just got lost in watch forums. I quickly sold the Gucci and started saving for my first proper watch. That's kind of how it happened. So I feel like I've always been into watches, but it wasn't until I did the research on the Gucci movement that I found the forums and realized other people like watches as well. And it's not just I like a watch. There is a connection to watches, and other people feel the same.
In the forums, was there a sub forum like on Gucci watches?
Well, no, it was kind of a back end. I can't remember how I found out about the movement inside, but I found the movement, and then I Googled the movement, and then that led me on to Tag Heuer were using a similar movement in their chronographs. And then that led me into the forums. So when people would ask me about my watch, because I had quite a few watch friends, it wasn't, this is a Gucci watch. This watch is powered by the same movement that Tag Heuer used. That was my kind of attempt at trying to redeem the fact that I was wearing a Gucci watch. And it was a real kicker when I tried to sell it, because I took it to a watch shop and they really just turned their nose up. Oh no, we don't touch that sort of stuff. That's what we call a fashion watch. We're not interested. Okay, this is gonna have to be going on eBay then.
It must have felt a lonely place on those forums looking for another Gucci lover. Yeah. And actually, you are probably just the only one who does have a Gucci watch.
Yeah, I didn't keep it for long. There wasn't. I didn't actually like the look of it. It was more of the fact that in my head, I was saving myself £1,000, but that's not really how life works. I still spent £100.
That story kind of reminds me of when I was like looking at some of the watches and they were fashion watches. But it was before I would say got really into watches. But there was, because you mentioned Gucci, there was this Emporio Armani watch. This Armani watch that I think either H. Samuel sold or Beaverbrook sold, right? It was a rectangular Cartier tank, probably ripoff, except I didn't know that there was a Cartier tank. And I don't know if you remember, Adrian, I don't know because you might be a lot younger than me, I don't know, but there was a time in England where it was all the rage to wear this like stainless steel or silver kind of bracelet around your left hand, right? And it coincided when I being following everybody, I bought one, right? And then I thought the next upgrade to that would be this watch. And you said 100 quid you spent. I remember looking at this watch thinking, wow, that's 185 pounds, right? That's a lot of money. Yeah. I mean, I was like must be like 16, 18 at the time. And I thought, wow, that's a lot. I never actually ended up getting the watch, thankfully. But do you think that, you say, oh, didn't really, kind of follow this generic pathway, but do you actually remember being the first part of time where you actually got into watches? Is it because of your dad? You saw your dad wearing your watch? Because if you're from Norfolk, like my understanding of Norfolk is that's farmland. Like that's agriculture. Watches there. The only watches you're getting are dug up from the ground.
I wasn't from North. We did live there for a while. I just went to boarding school there.
Sorry, Cambridge.
Cambridge. Yeah, it probably did come from my dad. I'd always play with his chronographs when I'd see them lying about. And when I was at school, he did a tour of. It was after the Gulf War. It's kind of the people were just making sure that Saddam wasn't messing about, and he did a tour of Turkey, and so it was based out in Turkey, looking out at Iraq. And we went out to see him in Turkey, and it was kind of a tradition that you go down this strip and you buy a fake watch. And so I bought a Tag Heuer chronograph, which was my dream watch. It was, I'd guess we'd call it a Grail watch. That was my Grail watch, and I bought it for about $10. And even at that time, I knew I bought the one that I knew was as close to the real one as possible. So I could identify which hands were correct and which hands weren't correct on the Breitlings and the Tag Heuers. And so I guess that was the earliest point that I was probably a bit of a watch geek. And I felt bad about buying that fake, so much so that when one of my friends liked the watch, and he said, I'll swap you, because he had this animal watch, which was a real animal watch on one of those old Velcro animal straps. And I thought, yeah, although the Tag Heuer would impress more people, I didn't like the fact it was a fake. So I'd happily swapped it with my friend's animal watch. So I kind of downgraded to this time only animal watch with a dive bezel on it.
Did he know it was a fake one?
Oh yeah. It was more of a poser, I'd say. He was a poser.
Still is. It's like
yeah.
I remember that animal watch. Now you bring it up. I mean, I haven't given it a second thought, but now you brought it up. I know exactly the watch you're talking about. Same rounds in my school.
Well, and those I always had, even in primary school when I was probably 9 or 10. I remember getting animal straps. We'd have this. Who made the Iron Man watch? Is it Timex Iron Man? Is it Timex Iron Man?
Yep.
And we'd have them on animal straps, and they'd stink, wouldn't they? They'd absorb all your sweat. You'd go through them, but they were cool. Good times.
Is your dad a collector?
No, he I guess he is actually. He's got, he does have quite a few watches. He only buys Seikos and Citizens. He's obsessed with eco drives. He's got one watch that is, I think, an atomic watch or something. But he always mocks me for the watches that I buy because he sees them as unnecessary. And he also laughs at the lack of accuracy, despite the fact they are relatively accurate for mechanical.
He really does see them as a kind of tool watch then. And,
yeah, I want to get him on a podcast. I want to do a video with him, because he talks about how he uses, or used to, he's retired now, but when you're doing bombing runs, your window to drop your bombs is tiny. You've got like a 10-second window to be at your target, do your work, and then get out of there. And you need something that you can actually rely on, as opposed to a hairspring that can be pulled out of joint if you're pulling hard G and stuff like that. So they're absolutely a tool. And I think that's probably where my obsession with tool military watches came from, because that's what I grew up looking at and playing with. Although I don't actually like chronographs. That's quite harsh.
Yeah, that is a bit harsh.
I'm not drawn to chronographs. I don't dislike chronographs. I just prefer time only.
So you mentioned that, you had a hard time understanding, the luxury side of watches. Do you, until you actually got exposed to higher quality? But as you know, like the curve is not like a direct line curve, it's an exponential curve when it's like
Mm.
luxury. You pay ridiculous amounts for a little bit of improvement or perceived improvement. How do you see luxury watches? What kind of, you clearly probably don't see Tag Heuer as a luxury watch anymore. So what is a luxury watch to you now?
If when I do my videos in my head, I guess I class anything above £1,000 as a luxury watch, because £1,000 is to pretty much anyone is a sizable chunk of money. If it's more than your mortgage a month, then that can probably be classed as a luxury. I don't class, when it comes to branding, then I guess it's a bit different. No, I don't class Tag Heuer as a luxury brand, but to the non-watch person, Tag Heuer is absolutely a luxury brand, and I've been thinking that they're probably quite a powerful brand to the non-watch person. Within the watch community, they're not really viewed that highly, but externally, I think they probably are viewed quite high. Yeah, you're right. It's weird how we can spend crazy amounts of money, and the difference between a Rolex Submariner and an Oris Divers 65 is very minimal. Is it justifiably 5 times the price? No, probably not. But then it comes down to the whole romantic connection and what value do we put on design? What value do we? I don't like to think that I'm overly connected to a brand, but there has to be some sort of justification in our head of spending an obscene amount relative on a brand. If I can get the same watch from Oris for £2,000, why am I spending 2.5 times that on a Rolex?
Is your wife into branded goods? It doesn't have to be watches.
She's kind of anti-brands. She's very thrifty. She says I'm the princess in the relationship. I like nice restaurants and nice hotels, and she's quite happy with McDonald's.
Okay, but you can't fault that. Everyone knows McDonald's.
Her wedding dress cost £25, and she bought
impressive.
it off eBay and made the rest herself.
That's cool.
And the wedding ring, she bought her wedding ring off eBay and kind of messed about with it herself. And I was a princess wearing a hired kilt, getting all the fancy stuff.
Yeah, we got to point out that you have a suit. Wait, you have 5.
I was supposed to wear the suit.
Yeah, you're supposed to wear.
In my head, after the last episode, I thought I'm going to show them. I've been painting the back. I've been painting my studio.
Adrian, that's a shit excuse. You don't have a suit.
Right, stay there.
For people listening, Adrian just got up and he's going to go get his suit.
Yeah, because if you listen to the last episode, he was adamant that he has a few suits and we don't believe him. We still don't believe him. And so he's clearly probably not going to return for half an hour as he goes down.
Yeah, he runs down.
Okay, so
Next stop.
This is my suits. Just a normal pinstripe suits. And I've got an array of tailored jackets from remember the place.
Good.
Chester, does he pass?
Sam's. Is it Sam's?
Sam's Taylor.
No, but what were the grey one? Is that wool?
The grey one is this is like a what's that, herringbone? Yeah, it's a wool. But quite a nice thin wool. And then at Sam's you can get your name embroidered on the tag. Quite cool.
Cool.
So for all our
we believe you.
We actually edited that part, and Adrian spent an hour going around his knee.
Fake news.
The cross is not too pauper-like, but okay. Well done.
Brilliant.
Right. Anyway, back to the podcast. Are there any special pieces within your collection that particularly have a deep meaning to you?
Yes. My Explorer, I guess, is the main thing. Buying a Rolex felt a bit weird when I first bought a Rolex, because I thought when I first decided that I wanted to buy a nice watch, I purposely ignored Rolex. I thought I was going to go down the Omega route. So I started off looking at Hamilton. Then, as you save, you kind of think, I could just save a couple of months longer. And then you start Hamilton, Mont Blanc, and I was kind of going up the way. Longines, and then I got to Omega, and I thought, cool, Omega's going to be the one. I'll get myself a nice pre-owned Speedmaster. And I was purposely ignoring Rolex. And then I got hands-on with an Explorer 2. And I just fell in love with it, and I thought, okay, maybe it's okay to buy a Rolex, and it just felt weird. And then I started doing my YouTube channel, and I thought, what is it? Am I into luxury? And that felt a bit dirty. Do I like luxury products? Do I like this watch because it's Rolex, because it's luxury, because it has status? And that felt a bit weird. And then I bought my Explorer 1, the 14270, at auction, with the idea of doing a video on it and just flipping it. And I was just going to do a negative video. I was going to rip it apart and kind of just, for me, kind of just, I didn't get why people like the Explorer 1. And then as soon as I put the watch on, I picked it up on Bond Street, got on the tube back to the office, and I looked down and thought, okay, there's something special about this watch. And I really enjoy the fact it doesn't look like a Rolex, and that there was just this weird bond that happened between me and this watch, that it was just me and this watch. The person sitting next to me on the tube didn't know this was a Rolex. And that was a realization that I do like watches. It's not about it saying Rolex. It's not about this thing being flashy. Oh, at the time, my only other proper watch was the Kermit. I don't know where it is now. The green bezeled Submariner. And that's quite a loud watch, especially to wear on the tube. It's a cool watch. I love it, but it draws attention, whereas the Explorer doesn't draw attention. And so that's my realization that I do actually just like watches. It's not about luxury. It's not about branding. It's about just enjoying this simple item. And I've now worn my Explorer in so many different situations. I've put myself in weird, awkward situations when I've done my channel, interviewing CEOs, traveling around, off to New York, off to Shanghai, Switzerland, and just doing things that really put me out of my comfort zone. Going to New York wasn't a problem, but just doing things that are different. And I always did it with my Explorer. And so I now have this real connection to my Explorer. And I feel like this is, if I had to sell everything, I'd be quite happy just being with my Explorer. And I actually wear it most days.
Well, I mean, if you ever come back to Shanghai, I've always got your back, mate. Like, yeah.
Unfortunately, I think it's going to be a while before travel happens again.
Explorer 1 is actually probably my favorite Rolex for me. Like, I love the under the radar classic lines of that watch, and the story of the Explorer 1 with Sir Edmund Hillary is just great. So,
and for me, I feel it is the ultimate Explorer. The ultimate Rolex. A lot of people, and that's probably just the fact that I've seen the dial so much and I've spent so long with the watch. But for me, it's just about telling the time. It's just about being a solid watch that is able to do things without being flashy, and it just tells time. Whereas the Submariner, there is an element of it being flashy. Certainly with the newer ones, with the ceramic bezels and everything, it's most certainly a luxury product. Where I still feel like the Explorer, there's an argument to say it isn't a luxury product because it doesn't have anything flashy about it. It's got the gold numerals, the gold
the only
markers.
say about the Explorer 1 is I don't like the numerals, like the font particular. When you look at the 1016, man,
there is something super sexy about 1016.
Yeah, it's just perfect, right? Like
it is
the rules that once you have it patinaed, it's hard to beat. Like, I just don't think the watch, it's one of those watches you can wear to anything, change the strap. It's there.
Yeah, it's stunning.
So what is it about Rolex that, really draws you? Because we mentioned that you have a nickname as the Rolex boy. Yeah, people hey, on the tube, yeah. But what is it about Rolex, or why do you think people call you that for a start? And what is it about Rolex you find it hard to gravitate away from? Because when I watched some of your videos before I met you, I already knew about you. You did mention that it's really hard for you to go away from Rolex.
I like limitations. I like when I still play guitar. But when I was a musician, I used to limit myself, or like limiting myself to, let's write a song just using these three riffs or these three frets. Sorry, I like working around limitations. I like the idea of just me and a camera, not worrying about lighting, not worrying about anything else. Just let's focus on this small area, and that's why I like just focusing on Rolex, because the watch world is huge. If I was to buy all the watches that I couldn't afford to buy the watches that I liked. Equally, I don't know if I could buy a JLC and fall in love with it as much as I do with my Explorer or my Kermit. And so I like giving myself limitations. It's like making YouTube videos. I like the fact that I have to focus on making a 10-minute long video. I like that limitation because it removes things and it focuses on just finding the best of that. If I've got an hour of footage, I have to fit that hour of footage into 10 minutes. You know that 10 minutes is going to be full of the best parts of that hour of footage. And the same with watches. If you just focus in on one small area, you're then going to learn what the special parts of that small area are. And then, for example, the Explorer, I know a lot about the Explorer range. And I enjoy focusing on that and just going deep. How deep can I go learning about this stuff? And the same with the Submariner. And I don't know. I've always just liked limiting myself to certain things. And I prefer that you could explore so many things in watches, and that just so happens to be my thing. And that's kind of been how my channel grew. I didn't know it at the time, but that's what caused my channel to grow, is because Rolex is the most searched brand, both from watch collectors and non-watch collector people. Everyone is searching for Rolex, and it just so happened that was the topic that I was talking about the most on my YouTube channel, which caused it to grow. So I guess that's quite a poor answer, but that's the only reason that I can come up with. I actually don't like modern Rolex. I don't like what it's become. I feel a connection to the adventure that they had in their marketing previous, and now they are very much a luxury product. Tudor, I feel more of a connection to modern Tudor than what I do to modern Rolex.
Imagine you had channeled that energy into Gucci watches.
Yeah, that'd be awkward.
That's a very awkward answer. Right, he so regrets mentioning that.
No, I do. I cringe every time I bring it up, but it's part of the story.
So you kind of just touched upon it. You might have even answered this, but you actually approached my next question, which was, what do you think of how, less about the piece, the fact that it's so difficult to get Rolex, and even when we're talking about Tudor now, how difficult it is. Some Tudor models are hard to get, right?
Yeah,
the premium. How do you feel about that?
It doesn't actually bother me. That's probably the topic that people moan at me the most, and I never understand it. We aren't entitled to these watches. We don't have to have these watches. Just because we have £6,000-7,000 sitting in the bank doesn't give you, I don't know. People just seem to get on some weird self-importance rant about owning these watches. This is a luxury product. If everyone had a Rolex, it would be like Omega. I don't see Omega as being luxury. Omega is too accessible to be luxury. They're sorry, not financially accessible, but like physically accessible. And this is why Rolex is the biggest and most powerful watch brand, is because you can't walk into a shop and get it. That's just how it is.
For you, the luxury thing isn't about just money; it's exclusivity in actually getting the piece. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And it's like Apple. Apple purposefully run out of stock on launch day. They always launch on a Friday, and they'll run out of their iPhones on that day. And you won't be able to get anything until the following Monday. No one will know when the next batch of stock is in. That means that you're always wanting that product. And it's the same with Rolex. You're always going to want that Rolex if you can't buy it. Do we need to, this meeting has been agreed. All right. So I guess the short answer is it's part of the game. If you don't like the game of Rolex, and there's plenty of other good looking watches that are easily accessible physically and financially. You can go get yourself a Glashütte original. You could go get yourself an Oris. You could go get yourself some
Gucci.
other Tudors or Gucci. Gucci, no, they're terrible watches. But my point is, it's part of the game. You can't like Rolex and moan at the fact that you can't get it. It's part and parcel. If that's the case, and go find something else. Grand Seiko are pushing out some incredibly good looking watches, and they're far easier to get hold of, and arguably better watches than Rolex.
I think that's a good message to send out to a lot of people that pine over watches, and there are a lot of watches out there that, quite frankly, if you can't get, just move on. And I think that's a message that Long also preaches quite strongly. You know, if a brand doesn't treat you right, or for whatever reason, you don't need to get the fucking watch.
Yeah.
Right?
There are bigger things going on in the world than people crying about not being able to get a Rolex. It genuinely angers me that people get upset about this stuff.
Mostly a Daytona.
Yeah, Daytona, gorgeous watches, absolutely gorgeous watches. But I'm not worried about the fact I can't get one. If someone said, Adrian, if you sell your Kermit now, I can access you a Daytona at retail, and I could pocket the profit from selling the Kermit, I might do that. But I'm not concerned about not being able to do that. Put the money into something else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
more
fun stuff.
Touching on like the Rolex and stuff. This podcast is called the Waiting List Podcast.
Yeah.
Do you know why it's called the Waiting List Podcast?
I assumed it was connected to the fact that some watches, the nicer watches, the Pateks, the Rolexes, and that lot.
Okay, so I'll make this really brief because you like that is part of the reason, but I'm sure the listeners probably have heard this in previous episodes. But the Waiting List Podcast is called the Waiting List Podcast because we were a bunch of 4 people, watch geeks, talking about watches, and we were thinking it'd be great if people could actually listen to our conversation, right? And the topic of conversation that day was the waiting list and whether it actually existed or not. So we were actually debating, right? It's a very good debate. So my question to you is, do you think that the waiting list exists?
Yes and no. No, there's a waiting list. If you work for an AD, if you're a salesperson on the floor, your job is to sell watches. The way you're going to sell watches is by creating a list of clients who you know. You're going to want to create a list of clients who you know are going to buy watches. And you're going to want to look after those clients. And naturally, you're going to rank those clients by how much they have spent. If you give a company money, you are naturally and logically more important to that company than someone who spends less. That's just how it is. And that salesperson is going to want to reward that person who spends more money. So if a Pepsi comes in, you're Joe Bloggs who works in Rolex AD number 1, and your biggest spender turns down the Daytona white dial that's come in, you're then going to call the next person on your list. So yes, there is a wait list. If you're Mr. Nobody who hasn't spent any money in that AD, and you go in and say, I'm interested in the Rolex Daytona, and you don't have any relationship, they're probably going to take your name and put it down on a list just to appease you and to get you out of the shop and to try and give you a bit of customer service and engage, carry on the conversation, engage, and then perhaps start talking about something else. So in that instance, no, they're not going to ever call you back for that Daytona because it's just not going to happen. So the answer can only be yes and no. There is a wait list if you're important enough to be on the wait list, and no, there isn't a wait list if you're not. For some people, I think that's a hard pill to swallow, but that's just life. And in some instances, you can get lucky. I got a Batman after waiting probably 2 weeks. I know someone who bought I'm going to get my Patek's references wrong, 5712, I think it was, after waiting 3 weeks for it. It's if you're someone of importance, then not saying I'm important. Oh yeah, no, well, actually, one of you bought one quite quickly. But a chap in London I know managed to get one very, very quickly. And the same with Daytonas. You can just get lucky, but for those who aren't lucky, the wait list doesn't exist.
Do you think that the waiting list can be circumvented by having a big YouTube channel?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. But that there is a value to them. If someone wants, it's all part of marketing. It's cheap marketing ultimately. If a watch shop wants to get advertising, then that's when the kind of playing the influencer card can benefit. I hate the idea of being an influencer, but it's possible. Yeah.
So in pure British style, can you sort of bruv out?
And I get that asked so often, even by friends. When I don't really tell my friends about my Bark and Jack stuff because it's I don't know why. But when they find out about the channel, that's when people say. I literally had a friend text me the other day and said, "Can you sort me out of a Rolex?" Well, you clearly don't know what you want if you're just saying a Rolex.
Well, to be honest, we get that question a lot, and generally we don't do it. I don't do it, right? Like people.
Well, no, it then comes down to abusing that relationship. It's a two-way thing. And that's what the whole AD thing comes down to. It's a two-way thing. If you spend a lot of money in that AD, they're going to help you out. Equally, if they help you out, you're going to create your loyalty to that AD. So it's always a two-way relationship.
Justin, did you have a question?
No, I think about that. Your friend asking you, can you help him out, help she out with a Rolex? I think you touch on something regarding that topic on your latest video. I think I just watched it like 2 days ago.
The branding video.
Yeah, the branding video.
Yeah, working with brands.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can be. It's a tricky one working with brands.
Yeah.
Why are you looking so sheepish? Is there something that is?
Did I say something in there that wasn't right? What?
No. I'm just saying that you kind of mentioned about that.
Oh, right.
Issues. Yeah. It's not really a question. Sorry.
How much does the fact that Rolex has high value retention, monetary value retention, play in your purchasing mind? Videos, by the way, like you say, oh, if I get rid of it, I'll still hold money. I didn't lose much on it. I do notice you say that. So is it?
Yeah, and I think that concept of Rolex holding value was probably pushed a bit too much and therefore a bit taken out of context. There are lots of watches out there that you can buy, not lots. There's a handful of watches that you can buy out there that will hold value. And I get annoyed when people say you can't invest in watches. You absolutely can invest in watches. It's like people saying you should invest in property. No, you shouldn't. You should invest in some property, some places, but don't just broadly invest in property because that's stupid. What happens to property? It's a tangent. It helps me justify it. It helps if I say I like this watch and I'm kind of searching for reasons to buy it. Then the idea that the money's safe in it makes it easier for me to spend that money. I don't buy watches because of their resale value or their investment opportunities. It just makes the pill a bit easier to swallow when it comes to spending that sort of money.
Have you just talking about your YouTube thing and talking about value retention and Rolexes kind of reminded me of another YouTube channel called Horology House. You know the furore that happened there. Like, yeah. Has that ever tempted you to? Because you must have loads of people saying, like, "Can you get me this? Can you get me this?" Right? You know what I mean? Knowing full well they're never going to open a case and know what a case is. Yeah, like, do you know what I mean? Like, don't worry, I'll sort myself out at the same time.
No, I'll be honest, that has never. I think my moral conscience is too strong. And that's proven by the fact that someone signed up to eBay and PayPal accidentally with my email address. So I have direct access to someone's PayPal account and eBay account because they have a very similar name to me and they've used my personal email address, obviously accidentally. And so I could go on a spending spree with this guy's account, potentially legally as well, because I just have direct access to his PayPal account. But I haven't. I've had access for about 2 years now. So my moral compass is too much of a good boy for that.
It's just that your moral compass hasn't been pushed to the extremities. That's all. So if financial hardship arises, trust me, you'll think about it.
That's how crime happens.
Where do you want to take your collection to? As in, do you just want to stay in Rolex and just focus and go deeper? And if you are to go deeper, you're saying that, it's an area that you can, well, one of the reasons you said you'd stay in Rolex is because you can buy stuff. And as you go up, you think you can't buy a lot of the stuff. But having said that, if you do go into vintage Rolex, there's a lot of shit that you can't afford there. So like, where do you want to go?
That's a good question. There's only one other watch that I feel like I'm going to get. I'm going to sell my. I'm looking around because I can't see any of my watches. I'm going to sell my no dates Submariner and buy an Explorer 2. After that, I feel like I'm relatively done. I don't really. I'm kind of trying to buy back the watches that I sold. I sold old watches because I couldn't justify holding on to them. I couldn't justify increasing my collection as well as increasing the amount that I was spending. So I sold off previous watches to justify buying other watches. I'm now trying to buy back the watches that I sold. So I want to buy my Explorer 2 back again, and I want to buy an Omega Seamaster that I had from the 50s, late 50s. After I've bought that, I can't really think of much else that I want. I've given up on the idea, or rather come to the realization that I don't really need or want high horology. I don't. If someone offered, I mean, I can't afford Patek or AP, but I genuinely don't feel the need to have a Patek or AP. I guess my ultimate grail watch is a Vacheron Constantin overseas dual time. I love the adventure that kind of watch conjures, but I don't need it, and I couldn't really imagine owning it. So after me buying this Explorer 2 and vintage Seamaster, I don't really know where I need it to go. I think I'm quite content, and also that's probably down to the fact that I do have this YouTube channel, and I am lent watches. Vacheron Constantin are there's an overseas dual time waiting for me at their head office for me to borrow for a couple of weeks. And so rather than having to worry about buying these kind of things, I can't afford to buy it anyway, but I get to play with these things anyway. So it kind of, that scratches the itch.
But, you can kind of like not think about it because let's say you don't have that financial means right now to buy it. But I really wonder if you did.
Sure. That's a very good point.
It's easy for you to say that because it's not in your consideration right now. But if it was.
So hypothetically, if Houdinki offered to buy Bark and Jack for £1 million, then what would I buy? Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'd go off and I'd buy myself a nice, simple, round Calatrava, and I would get myself an overseas dual time. Yeah, it's probably the fact that I've conditioned my mind to not wanting to spend money, or rather invest that money. I prefer to invest that money in the company as opposed to increase my watch collection. So yeah, I probably would go down the Patek Vacheron route if I had the money.
What I've deduced from this this podcast today is that not only do you not have any suits, but either, right? Looking left and right, and there are no watches. There will be no watches. I don't expect any watches to appear on the screen, and also how much you want Houdinki to buy your channel. I
don't. I mean, I'd pretty much do anything for £1 million, but
You know what I
But
find interesting? We have the same conversation about Hodinkee buying this podcast, but we're talking 500 million and you're at 1 million. Well, I was like, when they buy us for 500 million, what are we going to buy?
500 million. All right. Okay. So I need to up my stakes.
At least to 5 million.
Long should we cut that out? That Adrian only wants 1 million for his channel and his podcast?
Yeah, we'll cut that out.
Brilliant.
The thing is, like, when we talk about it, yeah, I could tell you, like, in my mind, I'm thinking you guys are nuts, but in Long Long's and Alex's, honestly, they're serious in there.
It is.
Like,
You got to dream big. You just got to think. I mean, if it doesn't happen, right? It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd only sell if I was able to carry on.
Doing
Because
yeah.
carry on doing Bark and Jack rather than it being just I don't know how acquisitions work anyway, but if it was bought and I was kicked out, then that would suck. In my head, if ever I won the lottery, this is what I'd be doing. So I guess if someone gave me £1 million, I'd just start up Bark and Jake or something.
Or I don't know, they will usually buy your brand and then buy you as well. But the thing is, you don't get to create what you want to create anymore, and they just tell you what to create. It's kind of like rich brands.
That would suck. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, that's usually the case.
Yeah, although £1 million is if 500, I'd do that for 500 million pounds. Now I get the idea.
us Asians, we just love money, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, your wife's a rarity. You found a good one there.
Her sister is completely the opposite. Her sister is obsessed with luxury brands.
But you touched on something that, and we're having a laugh about it now. And last episode, you mentioned about how your mother had a disdain for wealth and people showing wealth. Do you feel that that's actually held you back? Because I say that because didn't have that upbringing, and I'm pretty sure like the other two here didn't have that upbringing. And so I feel like almost the opposite, where I feel that I could do anything I really wanted to do. The main thing is, does that thing actually make me happy? Is that actually the thing that I want to do with my life? Right. So, yeah, I've turned it quite serious, but
no, that's cool.
Like, do you think it held you back?
Yes, I'd absolutely. To the point of I've either turned down opportunities or I've postponed ideas that I knew were that were going to be big money makers that would be on brand. I'm keen to keep things on brand with Bark and Jack, but the idea of making money has always been a weird relationship. And I think it comes to the idea of my parents, or rather my mum, trying to instill that money doesn't bring happiness. And to a certain extent, I do believe that. But the other side is, if you don't have money, that can also bring bring sadness.
Of happiness, that is.
Yes, so I guess there's that happening. And also when I worked at Apple, I had a lot of clients who worked, incredibly wealthy clients who worked in the financial industries, and they were miserable. They would openly tell me that they were miserable. So I guess a few things in life have tainted my idea of making money. But certainly, I guess growing up, that has impacted the fact of not actioning commercial decisions because of the idea of making money and how that would be perceived. So, which I guess is a weird thing.
Just going deeper, what plays in your mind that holds you back? What do you think? What's the process? And then if you know that that's a problem, or not necessarily a problem, an issue, how do you counteract your thinking so that doesn't happen, so that you don't make the wrong decision?
I think it comes down to a lot around limiting beliefs. And so you can have limiting beliefs around am I capable of doing this? Or I can't do this because of X, Y, Z. You can also have limiting beliefs of, am I worthy of doing this? Or do I deserve to do this? Why do I deserve to have money when I know that there's lots of people in the world who don't have money? Do I want to be connected to people who I see on TV who have money? And a lot of the times the media can portray people who have money as being bad people. So do I want to be connected to that? So I guess there are a lot of subconscious connections to things like that, which I think are at play. But I've reframed that. There are bigger things that I want to do that require money. And I mentioned in the previous podcast, I want to have an office space. I want to have a production team. I want to have people to help me do this. There's lots of things that I want to do. And I'm a bottleneck. There's so much content that needs to be edited. I want to be the person who has the creative mind, and then have an infrastructure around me to help execute that creativity, and that costs money.
This is not a question, but I'm a strong believer that money is not evil. So it just, I think Dan has said this before, it basically magnifies how you are, right? So if you're a bad person, you use that money in a bad way. But I feel like you're a good person, right? And you have all these ambitions and all these things that you want to do with the money. So I think that you should welcome the money, like actually believe that you deserve it, you know? Because on the contrary, like being half Taiwanese, it's not a great thing to show off that you have wealth. So generally, a lot of people are very low key. So I didn't grow up in an environment where my parents were like, show off that you have money, right? But then I knew I loved these things. I love luxury. I love nice things. So I basically rewired myself to be like, I like these things. I'm going to let them into my life and believe that I deserve it. And then I feel like I opened that door to welcome the stuff. And then it happens because whatever you want, right? It's like law of attraction. It actually happens. Well, I'm a believer of that. So I wish for things. And then I'm like very literally dreaming about, okay, I need this, and I make it happen. And then when it does happen, then I can just deal with it later on. If it's bad, I'll just figure it out later on. Yeah.
I'm a big believer of that as well. I've literally just recorded just before coming on here. I don't know if I'll post a video because I don't always post everything that I record. But I had a bit of a rant about aiming big and believing in what you're doing. I did a video, mentioned it earlier, about engaging with brands, and a few people commented, "Oh, it's easier for you because you've got a big channel. It's hard for a small channel." So I thought, no, I still see my channel as being small, but it's about acting who you want to be. If you are a small channel and you act like a small channel, you'll be perceived as a small channel. Act and see yourself as being the big channel, and then not only will you get there, but other people will believe this person's doing big stuff. So you're right. It's about believing what you're doing. The whole law of attraction. People will get on board, and things will happen.
So should we walk into the AD and act like the shit?
Well, as you mentioned it, one of the biggest spenders who I know, we were talking about buying luxury watches, waitlisted watches, and he doesn't have any trouble doing it. Not because of his relation; he has good relationships with ADs, but it's about him believing in himself. When he goes into an AD, he doesn't look in the cabinet. He says, "What do you have in your safe?" Yeah, what's in the bag? And he believes that he's that person. He believes that, well, he actually does have the money to buy pretty much everything in there. But because of his mentality, that obviously radiates out and people are sucked into that. And he has walked into ADs that he has no relationship with and walked out with a deep sea dweller and stuff like that. The hard to find stuff.
Amazing.
I can see Adrian donning his new suit, walking into a dinky, now going, giving him this pep talk. I just want to, if you ever get even close to that, anything more than $1 million, then that shit wouldn't have happened without our little pep talk here today.
You guys secretly work for Houdinki, don't you? That's what this is all about.
We do.
And I think you touch on like that's
We
serious.
work for Hodinky now. We will offer you 500 million. I think.
Oh yeah, that wouldn't work, would it?
Being serious, like I think you're touching on some really key points of. I think money doesn't bring you happiness. To be honest, I always say that the more money you have, and I think the two people here would agree with me, it brings a different level of problem and multitude of problems that it sounds really bad, that people that don't have money don't realize because they don't have money, right? And certainly, like what you said, we know many people that have a lot of money and are not like suicidal,
Yeah.
So I think what Long Long is saying about how she embraced that luxury because it's what she likes. I think being someone else for the majority of time is sad, is very tiring. I think it's about being true to yourself. Like, how am I? How do I see myself? And it's actually a self-acceptance of I'm okay to be like this. I accept myself. If you don't accept yourself, you're not actually even going to be respected as soon as you walk out the door, right? If you have a problem, who's going to respect you? And I think it's living your life almost with no apologies, right? And I think that's a key point to take away. But that also touches another question of mine, which is we talked about how I feel that money doesn't bring you necessarily happiness. I just don't believe it does bring you happiness. But also fame, because you have achieved a level of fame now where people know you and probably they feel like, because to most people you do have a few Rolexes, and in England they think, oh, he must be pretty well off, right? He must be having the life. He's getting flown around the world, going to Oris events, all of this, right? Gets to do what he likes to do. People love him. He has fans. Is it cracked up to be what it is? Or again, is it not real happiness?
I think the problem is that people perceive the world how they want to perceive the world. So if you want to see someone as being happy, you'll see it's a whole law of attraction. You'll seek what you want to see. You'll seek what you want to understand about something. And so if you want to see someone as being happy, you'll lock on to the things where they look happy. Ultimately, if you want to find someone being miserable, you'll be able to find the opposite. And that's the challenging thing about social media, is that you're putting yourself out there for other people to interpret what you're doing. And that's why I made the video about branding, because people will say, oh, Adrian's being flown off to Shanghai to an Oris event. Now he's being flown off to Switzerland to another Oris event. He's clearly being paid by Oris, because that's how they want to perceive that interaction. Whereas other people will congratulate me on being invited onto these trips and will enjoy going along with me on these trips, because that's how I try to document it. I think, coming back to your point about being real and being authentic, I used to get sucked into the world of trolling and the world of hype around YouTube. I used to really read into the comments and let the positive comments get to my head and also let the negative comments get to my head. Then it was a realization that sounds obvious saying it now, but you're not going to please everyone. You're putting yourself out there, and not everyone is going to like who you are. And that's okay. It's like going into a club. You can't chat up every person you find attractive. And
can.
All right, us normal people, the success rate isn't that high, and it's the same on YouTube. There are billions of people on YouTube, and not everyone needs to like you. And so that then comes down to, you won't be happy if you adjust who you are to the people watching the video. There was a time when I read every bit of criticism and acted on it. Oh, the sound's terrible. So some of the criticisms were useful. People were complaining about how bad the sound was. Cool, I fixed that. Some people complained about the lighting. I fixed that. If people complained about me, then I can't really fix that. Or I'll take that in consideration. Do I want to fix that? Do I want to wear a shirt in my videos? Do I want to wear a suit in my videos? Only if it's with you guys. But usually I don't want to wear a suit in my videos. And so it comes down to you won't be happy unless you're being you. If you won't be happy if you're trying to play a character or try to adapt you and your content to who you think are the audience. Again, it comes down to your kind of mental state. If you want to find the negativity towards you, you'll find it. If you want to find a positivity towards you, you'll find that as well. So it all comes down to being authentic. Be you and ignore what is going on.
If we take that a step earlier, so that's after you established yourself on YouTube and you had a lot of people commenting and saying, I mean, I even think it's great that people are commenting, right? But how about before you started that channel, the Bark and Jack, and a lot of people around you, your friends, people that you held in high regard, are telling you, nah, mate, like, I don't think so. Like, do something better with your life. Or, you know, you spent 6 months at this now. Like, are you serious? Like, this isn't a proper job. What about, did you ever cut people out to get to where you are today? Because I know, you know, Long did. You can listen to her episode later, you know, earlier. For those that haven't listen back, just so that she could progress and I guess find inner peace and happiness.
I think it's I don't think there's a solid kind of advice or right or wrong answer. I think you do need to identify who is trying to give you friendly criticism and trying to coach you because they care for you. And if I tried to sing, I used to sing in a band, and if I tried to sing, I would accept if people said, Adrian, this isn't your thing. But equally, and so then it comes down to you trying to identify, is this person trying to just bring me down and be negative towards what I'm doing? Are they jealous of what I'm doing, or are they trying to coach me for what I'm doing? I think, I don't know. Yes, I have cut people out, not purposefully, I guess accidentally. And I think that's what happens when you start a business and you're just busy. I wouldn't say I've lost friends, but I've certainly friendships aren't as strong as what they should be because I've been so focused on my building Bark and Jack. And it's a sad thing, but at the same time, you have to prioritize things. I feel like what I'm doing has legs. That this is my future. This is what my family is living off, and it sounds horrible verbalizing it, but I value building this, or rather, my drive to build this is greater than my drive to meet up with people and go for drinks, which probably isn't healthy, but that's just how it's happened. What has happened.
I think in your interview with Fears, what's his name again?
Nicholas,
yeah. He said the same thing. He said anybody that goes on this journey, you've got to realize that you're going to cut like at least half of your friends out, because you're never going to be able to reply to some of those WhatsApp messages that people are messaging because you're so focused on it.
That's it. There's only so many times that your friends are going to ask to meet up before they realize that they don't want to be told no again. And it's tricky because that's it's had an impact on the family as well. Or I think I'm better at that now, but certainly at the start, I was just work. I'd come home from my day job, have dinner with the kids, and then the laptop would be open and I'd edit until 1 in the morning. And then that would be life. And then come the weekend, I'd go off, make videos and edit. I was putting out 3 videos a week at one point. I'm now doing 1 video a week to try and get a better work-life balance. But it's tricky. So I guess in prioritization, I've improved my relationship with my family, but I haven't yet got to the point of carrying on the friendships.
Was there any point in Bark and Jack where you were not monetizing and you were reliant on your wife's income?
No, she was kind of working, but she was mainly, she had a job, but she wasn't bringing in much. We're living off my my day job salary. That was the salary that was paying for everything. So it was a big leap of faith, because we went from having my salary to having Bark and Jack's salary. There was no backup from her. That's not. She previously had a job that didn't allow her. She used to be a musician, in a touring band, and you can't do that really and be a mum. And so she left that, and so we just had my salary.
Okay.
Which was a blessing and a curse, because it meant that we didn't have any backup money, but equally we had conditioned ourselves to live off my one salary, which wasn't a big salary, certainly not for living in London, which meant it was relatively easy to get Bark and Jack to a level of being able to match my salary. So we were living okay, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So do people get starstruck by you?
Look at Chester's face.
Hey, by the way, like you answer, before we did this podcast, we usually have 3 people on the podcast. Alex is one, and Chester and Lung Lung and me, right? And it was pretty cemented down that me and Lung Lung were going to be doing it. And then the third place was up for grabs. And like, it's like 2 little kids. I want to do it. I want to do it. I want to do it. Adrian, Alex is like, I want to meet Adrian. I was like, fuck off.
Yes, it's happened a couple of times, but I think it comes down to the weird thing of you've seen this person online and it feels like you know this person, but then you suddenly meet them in real life, and the kind of parallax of having seen them through the camera and now you're seeing them in 3D, that's weird. And now you're engaging. It's like you're having a 2-way conversation as opposed to that previous 1-way. So I think that just, I've met some of the guys from Houdinki, and I completely fanboyed when I met James Stacey at a Grand Seiko event, because I've listened to the Grade NATO podcast pretty much since the time it started, and I just couldn't string a sentence together. I was just blabbering about rubbish, and it was just weird. I couldn't function normally.
I remember you telling a story about you meeting Roger Smith, and like some complete, like, even I was listening to it and I was thinking cringe worthy.
Oh, man.
Yeah, right.
I am really awkward in real life. I had to go pick up the kids from school the other day, and it just so happened that one of my wife's friends was walking past the house, so I ended up walking to the school with her. And then I had to come back to my wife and just apologize for all the stuff that I was all the rubbish I was talking to a friend about. And so you just have to explain that your husband's just socially inept. That's just what happened with Roger Smith. He was doing this. He's such a cool guy. He was doing this talk on clocks, on the history of clocks at Bonham's auction house on Bond Street. And then I went up to talk to him, and I ended up just talking to him about his Explorer that he was wearing, which he doesn't really know much about. He doesn't really care about, beyond the fact that it was a watch that his wife gave him. And he was on the other wrist, he was wearing one of his own watches. And I didn't ask him one question about that watch. I just couldn't, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what sort of conversation to struck up. And I actually corrected him. He looked at my watch and said, "Oh, we've got the same watch." I said, "Well, actually, we don't have the same watch. You have the double 14270, and I have the 14270. The difference is that yours has superluminova." And it was such an awkward moment. But then I made a video about that moment, which he actually commented on, saying, "Why don't you come to the workshop?"
That's so nice.
Man. Yeah. And then I went to see him, spent the day with him, and it was an awesome guy, really cool.
Cool.
So do you actually go to gatherings often in England, or do you actually have an offline kind of thing with your, I don't know, not your viewers but other collectors?
I go to Red Bar.
Inept.
I go to Red Bar events as often as I can. I love Red Bar, and to be honest, that's kind of become my my socializing is kind of mixing. It's a bit of work, a bit of socializing, and so that's my time to kind of catch up with mates and stuff. But
are there any difference between like Asian collectors and European collectors, do you think? How do you
I don't know that many Asian. No, I don't know. I don't know enough.
All right, fair enough. We're going on to like the last 2 questions here. Talking about Red Bar, they designed their own watch with Oris. My question is, what would you design if Oris came up to you, because they probably have come up to you, right? And like, or eventually, oh, I saw a little wink there.
They haven't come up to me, no.
You want them to come up to you?
Yes.
Starts at 5 million. 5 million, not one.
I have a list of
13 members Thursday. I'll mention it.
I've actually specced out what I'd do to one of their watches to make it Bark and Jack,
which you can't share, obviously.
Yeah, it'd be cool. I think is what I think it'd be cool.
All right, let's move away from Oris then. What if you had free reign to actually make your own watch?
See, that used to be the dream, but I think there are too many watches out there already. I think the whole market is saturated massively. So I do think, for me, I like fiddling with things, and so there's always stuff that I'd adjust, and so I think I'd get a lot of enjoyment. And I've spent quite a bit of time thinking about this, tinkering with what people have done, taking what people have done, and just, I guess, making it bespoke to what I'd like, or just adjusting a few things. So I think that's what I prefer to do, rather than build a Bark and Jack watch. I actually don't think the name Bark and Jack would look very good on a watch anyway. I think it's the name of a watch is so important, which is my challenge with quite a few people.
It's very hard to get 500 million from just selling watches. I think you've got a YouTube channel, mate. So stick to that. But the final question is, what watches have actually impressed you this year? And how do you, all the watches have been pretty much released digitally. What do you think of that, considering you're, in digital media? And has it helped you at all? So kind of like 3 questions in the last question.
The watch that's impressed me is Glashütte Original CQ Panorama Date. I didn't realize, it's kind of coming back to that original Gucci experience of experiencing luxury. The CQ Panorama Date just took dive watches to a new level for me. It's very similar to the Diver 65 from Oris. It's got that vintage diver aesthetic about it, but the way that they've executed it is just in such a highly engineered way. The clicking of the bezel is insanely good, and then the movement of the bezel, there is no back movement at all. There's no wobbling of the bezel. That action is, it clicks and it stays exactly where it is, and then the movement on the back is just, it's gorgeous. So that the whole, and then you have the date function with these 2 individual discs rotating to display the digital date. They've taken a relatively normal looking watch and just made it incredible. So I was completely blown away. And to be honest, if Hodinkee bought Bark and Jack for 500 million, then that would probably be the first watch that I would buy before any Patek or any AP. It would be one of those CQ Panorama Dates. I think it's amazing. So what was the second part of that question? Digital. I think it's benefited in a way because logistically, I didn't like making content based on photographs, but I think for this year, the viewers have accepted that we aren't able to travel. So it's allowed me to just sit in my office. Breitling launches new watches. I can make a video on that. And even though the video is based solely on photographs, press photographs, viewers have accepted it. Whereas previously I'd have to go off to Baselworld and not be allowed to see Breitling watches because they didn't want to talk to me. But Breitling, I think, actually did a very good job with their stuff, because they actually, rather than just sharing out high-res images, they shared out 4K video. If they shared out 1080p HD video, that would have been great. But they actually did 4K video, which was easily downloadable. And then I had better content to work with. That was far better than anyone else did. IWC actually did quite a good job as well. They shared out quite a good amount of video, although it was all a bit too fancy. But quite a few brands were just pushing out press releases and photographs. And some brands like Panerai didn't even bother doing stylized photographs. It's just a watch on a white background. I can't do anything. Make it look good at least. Try. Put it into context. I'm not buying a watch on a white background. I'm buying a watch to go on my wrist. And so I thought what they did was really quite lazy. But generally speaking, it was a positive thing because it meant it was easier for me to make content.
I think Panerai, they put in quite a bit of effort for their store installation. How they're celebrating, what was it last year, that how many years of divers watches? So anyway, they were sticking up, have all this painting of a kraken coming out, that like probably referencing that you can dive really deep with a Panerai. So I think that
That's
was
where all the budget went.
yeah, paintings.
Yeah.
I think it's been a real great pleasure to talk to you today, this evening.
And you guys.
You've given a different perspective of collecting, which maybe when I was in the UK I had, but when I moved to Asia, my kind of direction kind of changed. But it's refreshing to kind of see how you see watches and collect watches, and certainly where your knowledge base lies. You know, I certainly have a lot of respect for that.
Thank you.
I also, yeah, like that's the good part. The bad part's coming. What I was going to say is, like, normally we have to think of a title for the episode, and as much as you've mentioned Hodinkee and the 500 million, it's going to have to be Gucci. It's just
After all the times we've mentioned Rolex.
we have to move you away from this Rolex fanboy, and I think the only way is to call you Gucci fanboy now. Right?
Oh man.
Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to go back up.
Thanks.
But jokes aside, it has been a real pleasure, and I'd like to thank you for supporting our channel in its infancy. Every time I've asked for your advice, you've helped and supported and never shirked away from it, and that's as generous I could ask of anybody. I think it's more of a testament to your character and just what a general all-round decent bloke you are. So
well, thanks for having me on. But I think we need more people like us. We need people making.
I wouldn't say like us, but like maybe you.
Honestly, the content you guys are making is really. You've come into quite a crowded area, and you've made it your own. You've got your own style, and it's very listenable. And I want to listen to more, that's success for you guys for a podcast. You want people to want to listen more, and that's what you managed to do. So well done on doing that. It's great.
Yeah, all that 50% that click off after a minute, fuck off.
But that's good. That's good. Good stats. I don't know what the average is for podcasting, but if that was a YouTube channel, then that'd be very good.
Oh, okay. We sometimes reach 80%.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's
talking about 80% for the whole hour and a half, man. You know what I mean?
That's incredible.
It's quite incredible. So this is why I think if you did the podcast, I would listen to it 100%, because I think you prepare well, and I think it's a lot about preparation and the way you talk and the way, I just think I would listen to it. So yeah, I hope you do it. Mm-hmm. Right, we have to do the quick fire, and then we're going to round this up. Okay.
Cool.
Right, what's the best coffee you have drank?
Random.
Oh, I was thinking about this today. Actually, it seems to always be in Switzerland. I don't know what they put. They put some sort of cream in their coffee, and it's just really nice.
It's because they fly you over for it, mate.
Is it because it's free? That's
right.
What it is.
How many cups of coffee do you have a day?
Too many. It depends if I'm making video. If I'm making video, it could easily be like 8. But usually probably about 4.
All right.
All right.
Nice. Will you develop the podcast channel?
Develop my podcast channel?
Why are you looking to develop ours?
Yeah, he wants a piece of it now.
When he heard 500 million.
Yes, I will. I have a plan. A plan which I'm going to be executing very, very soon. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks. Which isn't directly going to be a podcast, but the format will work as a podcast as well.
Okay. Egg tarts or English scones?
Scones. English
Hang on a
scones.
minute. Have you had egg tarts?
No, but you can't beat a scone.
Can you? Not racist here on this channel. That is a very
Yeah.
comment.
But it's kind of like my I've come to the idea that I will never get a watch that is as nice as my Explorer. Even if I own my Grail watch, nothing will beat my Explorer. Nothing can beat a freshly made scone with clotted cream on it
From
and raspberry
Tesco's.
jam. Oh, not from Tesco. No, you got to have a proper homemade. No, that stuff just gives you stomach acid. You got to have like proper stuff.
Disappointed, but when you're in Hong Kong, we are going to get you some proper egg tarts, right?
I'm sure my wife's force-fed me something. There's quite a few. There's actually a really good Cantonese bakery near us. We get quite a few fun things from
The thing
there.
is, right, because you're English, I just don't rate your taste buds. Like, I'm just
to be fair,
just say what the other two are thinking. Like,
I do have the palate of a 5-year-old. To be fair.
Right. London, Hong Kong, or wherever you're living now, which one would you prefer? Where would you like to live?
London, but when we last went to Hong Kong, we seriously looked at how it would work if we lived out there. I was really taken back by Hong Kong. I loved it. It was such good fun and so much better put together than pretty much any city. I see Hong Kong as London in like 50 years. It's just ahead of what is going on. But I love London. Like there's something buzzing about London.
Well, I hope it doesn't become Hong Kong in 50 years, personally. London has a certain charm and elegance. Hong Kong would never even rival. Like, it's so many million years behind it. Like,
but the infrastructure, you can't. You have air conditioning on the subway. We don't even have that in England.
But you have free newspaper on the subway.
Because it's been someone's seat or something.
Yeah.
It's been their bed for the night.
100 years. That's gonna mean something.
the phones don't work in the subway in England.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah, it's shocking.
Yeah, shocking. Right. What advice would you give to us if we were going to launch our own channel with regard to content? Like, what would you, given the resources that we have, what would you say would be a good entry niche point?
Well,
I think it's difficult because you have to do what you feel is it depends on your motivation. If you want to build a channel and grow the growth of the channel, have a large presence, then you need to focus on growth first. And I'm actually strategically transitioning what I'm doing right now to focus again on high growth content. But you have to always package it as content that you enjoy. So it always have to come down to stuff that you enjoy. YouTube is a lot of work. Editing a podcast is hard, but editing a YouTube video is harder because you have so many other aspects to play around with. And you're not going to make money on it anytime soon. And so you have to do something that you enjoy. So I think that's just what I'd say. The watch world, luckily, I don't think the YouTube watch arena is saturated yet. I think there's so much more room for people to join because the watch world is so large, and we're all talking about opinions on luxury products. And so we can't really be wrong about what we're saying. So I think there's always space for more people. And also, sorry, last little thing on that is the more people we get in the watch community on YouTube, the bigger the community is, the more people, the more viewers will come to the platform, just like how big photography is on YouTube. It's a massive arena. We're miles behind with the watch world. So we need more watch people on there.
Okay. Right. Next question. Can you say anything in Cantonese?
Yes, whether or not my pronunciation will be any good. I can count to 10.
Go on.
I can say, oh gosh, yeah, yi sam say la jet bat gao. I can say brush your teeth.
Hang on, you missed one.
Did I? Yeah, yi sam say yeah.
10.
Sam say lock jet back gal. Ah, what's 10?
Sup.
Sup. Oh, and then it starts repeating itself. It's sup, ye, sup.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
That's right.
I think brush your teeth is chat now. Chat now.
Yeah, chat now. Yeah.
I just know all the things for the kids.
Yeah.
Hong Long. I think that's monster or dragon.
Nice.
I learned that off Peppa Pig. We watch Peppa Pig. I don't. The kids watch Peppa Pig in Cantonese.
Like Cantonese always say, "Hurry up!" Like, do you know how to say that?
You say it, and I'll probably recognize the wife saying it. I don't. So I'm not entirely sure my wife speaks Cantonese, because when we go to Hong Kong, she'll speak Cantonese or what she thinks is Cantonese. She's probably going to get angry hearing me say this, but the people reply to her in English. Yeah, she quite clearly looks Cantonese. She's speaking Cantonese, but they always respond in English. So it's
on your wife, mate. And any repercussions you receive from that. But born in England or Hong Kong?
She was born in Hong Kong, but they moved over when she was like 8 months old, so she's pretty much.
Oh, so it could be probably her accent. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure her accent is off.
All right, the last one. What do you want us to teach you in Cantonese?
My gut reaction is a swear word, but I think we.
You know all of those anyway.
Teach me hurry up again, because that would be impressive, because she doesn't say that, but I could say that to the kids, and then I could teach them. So say that again.
So I would say it to the kids, but don't say it to the wife. The end sound on it, that tonal sound, if you said it to your wife, I'm sure your wife would turn over and give you a really strong stare. Like, what the hell? Yeah. But if you said it to the kids, because you're like an elder, like you're their father, it's okay. But it's maybe not so okay if you said it that way to your wife. Would you agree, Chester?
I don't know. I'm not married.
If we said like, okay, hurry up is Fai la. Yeah, Fai la.
So you just pronounce Fi. So like sci-fi, fi. Yeah, A B C D D, Fi D. Yeah.
Fai la.
On la, the longer you drag it, the more emphasis it is on hurry the fuck up. Yeah. So if you say it means like you're pissed off. You need to get that shit done. He said,
No, Daniel, you should emphasize on the fi and say it in a very condescending way. Fi di la. When you from the wife.
This is going to go down well.
And tell us the doghouse by the end of tonight. Okay, just message me.
Brilliant.
It's not
gone on so long, but I've had such a great time. I hope the listeners have too. So if you have enjoyed this podcast, remember to subscribe and follow us, and drop us a comment if you enjoyed it and give us some feedback. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot, Adrian, and thank you.
Thanks for having me. Thanks so much, guys.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Waiting List podcast. Hit the subscribe button and the next episode will come straight to your phone as soon as it's ready. Whilst I'm here, please remember to leave a nice review and follow us on Instagram at the Waiting List podcast.